Hi, welcome to CreepGame Assignment 2.02. Last assignment, we added a graphics engine to our 2D Pong game. For this assignment, we're going to convert the engine to a 3D engine with a transform pipeline. Let's take a look. So we'll start the game by pressing F5. We'll choose a medium paddle, and look, we've got 3D paddles now. So I'm going to change the mode to demo mode, which attaches an AI to my paddle, and I'll launch the ball. And we see we have a 3D ball too. Okay, now let's take a look at some of the stats over here. We see that we have 6 objects. So basically they would be the 2 paddles and the ball, the floor, that makes 4, and then there's a kind of a fun box on the outside, a rotating box that has an inside and outside, which makes 2 more boxes, and that's a total of 6. We'll see that later. Now notice the number of bytes: 1280, 56 verts, and 36 primitives. We're going to add, just like before, we're going to add 1,000 mini pong balls right now. And let's take a look at our stats. Now notice we do have 1,006 objects out there. We've got 3 geometries. We'll talk about that later. But we've still only got 1,280 bytes total for all these objects, 56 verts, 36 prims. What's going on? Well, in this assignment we've learned to share geometry. So really there's only 3 geometries in the entire game, and they're all being shared by every object, because every object in this game is basically of a cube shape. They all have 8 vertices, 6 sides, and so all the geometries are shareable. So even the little mini pong balls are 3D, which you'll actually be able to probably see in a second, but they're untextured. Now let's look at some of the let's look at our camera. We had to create a camera for this game, and we want to be able to show that we have some control over this camera. So right now it's focused on the middle of the screen, but by pressing the letter C we can have it fixed on the ball instead. So here we go. So now you'll notice the camera is following the ball, and you can see the edges of the pong table. Plus you can see some other stuff in the background, which we'll talk about in a minute. If I press C again, I reset the camera to the center of the screen. Now let's take a look at a little bit of the extra stuff we've added. If I press N, I will get a side view of the pong table. So I'll press N now, and you see now it's starting to look a little bit more like a three-dimensional thing. And sometimes if you look on the left-hand side of the game, you can see the little mini pong balls hanging over the edge. You can see that they are indeed 3D, and you can also see that in the back a little. So if I press N again, we'll see it from an N view. There we go. And I think in the back you see that some of the little pong balls have actually have some height to them. And I'm going to press N again to get back to the regular view, and then one more time. Now I'm going to zoom out by pressing the 0 key, and you'll get to see what is going on around this pong table. And you see what I've done is created this massive box around the pong table, and if I press U, you can see the top of the box. Anyhow, I just added that for a little bit of fun and to play around with my graphics engine. Let's check out some code now. Press X to stop the game, and let's look at basic entities. So here we initialize the basic objects, and you'll see we have 3 add geometries, and one of these add geometries is for untextured boxes. For example, all of this geometry is used for all of the mini pong balls. And then there's a textured box that we have geometry for, and that's for almost everything else. The only thing it isn't used for is this inverse textured box, which is the inside of that room, which is that watery kind of texture. And then what we do is we also add a floor and add a box to the scene. And so adding the floor basically says the floor is going to use this texture box geometry, and then it sets up some transform info, and then it tells the render engine, here's another object I want you to display, here's the info for it. So this is how you now add graphics objects to the engine. And then here's the add box, and you'll see we've got an inner box and we have an outer box, and the inner box uses that inverse textured box geometry, whereas the outer box uses the same geometry that the floor did. And then it also calls the render engine and says, okay, add this thing to your scene, start rendering it. And same here, but this one has a callback in it because that outer box is rotating, and we want to be able to rotate it a little bit every frame, and this is the callback mechanism that we use to do it. And here's the callback function. So you'll see that we basically calculate a new angle each time we have a new frame, and for both the inner box and the outer box we set the rotate transform, we set that angle. And the reason we do this with just one callback instead of one for each of these is we only want to calculate that angle once, but we also want to make sure these two boxes stay in sync, and by setting them both at the same time we achieve that. So let's go back to the assignment, and here's the requirements again plus the fulfillment of them. You saw camera was quite capable. No longer need to use dynamic geometry because they're all sharing geometry data now, but the dynamic capability is still in there. And the two paddles should share the paddle geometry. Well, actually, pretty much everything the game shares the geometry of those three particular boxes: the textured, untextured, inverse textured. And then the camera has the center of the screen as its focal point. We can change it to follow the ball. So we've basically handled all of the requirements of the assignment, and that's the end of this overview. Thanks very much, and goodbye.